Okay. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
How was your day? Day or dead?
Day.
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 How's your day? Sometimes I book English, something say wrong words. How's your dead is past way? What is it, dead?
Date is like looking at a calendar. How was your day? It's like,
Okay. Now, what is how's your dead? Dead.
or dead.
Okay, anyway. 방금도 강진하면서 오지. 그래서 마누라 마테를 가지 간대체되는 방법이 그래서.
So normally, most of us will have some daily practices to do, right?
좋아. 근데 이제다 저도 같이 마시. 근데 같이 좋아하는 곳이 라마스는 개념 보이고 친구들이 같이 때마다 소소지. 아, 지금 가서 같이 소소지 같이 가르치는 데 그래서. 같이 가르치고 학 뭐가 되더라고 예습을 했어.
So some of you have taken initiations and you have a commitment, to do the daily practices, and some of you just volunteer or choose to do some practices on your own, and some of you you don't know what practices to do.
Some people say, "What can I do practice? I don't have any sessions."
So some people say, "I've never taken any initiations. What daily practice should I do?" So in order to do the daily practice, you don't necessarily have to take initiation. So when you have taken the initiation, then you are given a practice to do in relation to that deity, of which you have taken the initiation. Right? So if you have taken Tara initiation, then you have this practice in relation to the Tara, where you do the sub-generation of Tara. So those of you who have taken initiations and who have been assigned to do daily practices, of course you're doing that. And those of you who choose to do some certain practices, you do that also, right? But those of you who think that I don't know what practice to do, then you can do the practice. You can do you can recite that prayer that we just recited before the teaching. And so that prayer, the whole prayer that we recited during the session here, you can just recite it every day. So first, it starts with taking refuge and generating bodhicitta, right? There are 4 lines. So the first 2 lines shows about the refuge, taking refuge in the three jewels. So the refuge, taking refuge in the Buddhist, in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, is like the ID of being a Buddhist. So whether you're a Buddhist or not, doesn't depend on how you look externally, how you dress or how you look externally. It doesn't depend on that. So even those who wear robes, who shave their head and wear robe, pretend to be a monk, cannot be a Buddhist if they don't have a refuge in their mind. So that's why Lama Atisha, when he came to Tibet, he said, so there are these people who wear robes and claim themselves as a Buddhist monk or even a teacher, but they're not Buddhist themselves. And so you have to take refuge, in the three jewels in order to be a Buddhist, and there are three objects of refuge. Those are the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So those are the three objects of refuge. There are objects in whom you take the refuge. So the Buddhist is someone who believes or who asserts that the three jewels, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, are the ultimate object of refuge, and who do not take refuge in other than the three jewels. So that's the definition of being a Buddhist. But of course, you don't have to be a Buddhist in order to study about Buddhism. So the first line shows about or talks about the object of refuge, right? Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until I'm enlightened. And so it says, I take refuge until I'm enlightened. Until what? Not until you're enlightened. 아니 소소고 심바 동안 나와서 파주를 거 냠네 싶어 되게 나 그치는 놀아 봐야 된다 그러니 다 심바 동안 나와서 가지 파주를 거 냠네 나와서 봤다 때네 아니 생제던데 상지 고마 토벌 쇼고서야 되거니 담아 되니까 담보대 점으로 이 받으니까 생제되라고 그러죠. So then it says in the third line, it says through giving and so forth, right? Giving and the rest. So the rest or so forth includes the other practice of the perfection. So the perfection of the generosity, the giving is the generosity, right? And then there are other practices of morality, effort, patience, and so forth. So all those are included. So through the practice through the power of doing any of these practices, practice of giving, practice of observing morality, and so forth. So through the power of giving and the rest, may I achieve state of full enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And so through that power, may I become a Buddha, or may I become enlightened, fully enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. And so that last two line, shows the bodhicitta, or the altruistic attitude, or the wish to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, which is the bodhicitta, right? So whether you are a Mahayanist or Mahayana practitioner or not, depends on whether you have that thought of wanting to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings or not. And so that the first verse in that prayer, the first two lines of that verse explains about the refuge, and then the next two lines talks about the bodhicitta.
근데 샘제대 용화라 내한테 가지 세메셔 로고가 되고는 좀 세메셔 좋아.
And so then after that, that talks about the four immeasurables, right? The immeasurable compassion and so forth. So in order to accumulate a great amount of merit, you meditate or generate those four immeasurables.
뒤에 오더라니 진짜 선바 사실 다 선지 좀 되고 고송 되고 이게 돼서 그러면 대단 레벨에 다 선지 좀 되는 까지 수업 되고 또 그게 수업.
And then after that is the praise to Buddha Shakyamuni, right? Thinking about or contemplating on the excellent qualities of his body, speech, and mind.
아니 뒤에 나서까지 가지고 다 지금 지금 저만 떠봐. 어디에 걸어 송거를 들어봐.
And then there are some verses in that prayer in praise to Buddha Shakyamuni, which explains about the death and impermanence.
그러니까 까마르는 매단 내지 주는데 다 내서 왔다. 내지 못 하고 송거를 와서 못 하고. 가지 되나 특별히 그 고지 가가 좋아.
So then the words that says that like a mirage, like a star, and so forth, and says see all compounded phenomena as such. See all compounded phenomena as such. So those talks about or explains about death and impermanence.
다 뒤에 오더라니 뭐도 다 가대 라자던 저거 라면나 좀 송거 왔어.
And after that you do the Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga, right?
아니 연합된 한대로 송거 다 나도 다 양의 체다 되는 거.
So that Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga involves the practice of the seven limbs. Right? So those are the practices to do.
근데 뒤에 오더라면 빨리서 라마는 뭐지 가지 뜻을 내줘도 왔어. 가지야. 수자이로는 소화돼.
Then after that you make a special request to your glorious Guru, right? Where you visualize the Guru descending into you, or nectar and light flowing from the Guru and entering into your body and so forth.
어때 저 아니 다 아니 산재와라 소는 것도 이시 도이 싸고는 저거다 소는 것도 그래서
And so after that, is all about accumulating merit, all about accumulating merit, which is necessary in order to achieve state of enlightenment. So that you need the accumulation of merit and accumulation of wisdom. So after that, among these two, it explains mainly about the accumulation of merit.
아니 뒤에 와라 땅도 혈압이 뭐야? 와다 혈압이 다 동안이 또 혈압. 가지 동안이 다 이거 손 그래서 근데 이게
So then after that is the essence of wisdom, or Heart Sutra, right? So Heart Sutra, which is all about emptiness, and so that talks about the wisdom, the essence of the wisdom, and so it's all about accumulation of wisdom.
그래와 어디 다 대지사는 데만 오래야 다 먼저 나오는 거 음식이 왔어.
And then
딱 수지사는 거 주려고 왔어. 나는 뭐 맞아 수지사살 그래요. 그래서 되는 거였어. 나는 뭐.
And then there is the dedication, right? What was that? The dedication? What is it called? What dedication is it after the teaching? No? Which one is it? No, the long one. The Lamrim dedication. Lamrim prayer. Final Lamrim dedication.
아니 대사들은 개발되어서 다 가서 가지 유유인 같이 뒤보라 다 냠배는 차상은 되게 가지 너무 가대 여기서 개매 제 명예들 이와나 다 되는 되게 그래서 뒤로 차고 되어서.
And then after that there is the praise and request to Lama Tsongkhapa, right? So that includes all the practice, all the insights and practice for one person to do on a daily basis.
뒤털 수수 싸먹다 시와이나 딱 너도 나다 자는 다 해서.
So you can meditate or contemplate, then you can contemplate on all sutra and tantra there.
아니 남의 주역이지 딱 가서 지금 지만 가서 지금 도도는 거지. 세루지 도도시시면 가는 냠매를 내려쳐 되게 되어서 지금 So
that includes all the essential practice of Buddhism into that short praise or prayers, and it includes everything.
Right. Usually we have a lot of commandments, we do a lot of books you can read. We don't have to think, you just finish out. Not too much left, This is not, I don't know you guys, some people do this, too much. Some people jump down to your shortcuts. And the consumption, I'm sure, can you say, you are doing it, you are doing there's another thing that you have, the car, names are not, you don't need such a thing with you. And the Nekagi, Jing Pacha Seva, Tom Tenetra, Tatu Tower, the age of Kombatova, which is the Drummer near, which is your race.
So, if you think of doing some practice and you don't know what to do, then those are the practices that you can do. And if you want to do a little more than that, then you can add the praise to the 21 praises to Tara, so that you can do that in order to remove all the obstacles and to achieve the state of full enlightenment, to fulfill all the wishes, to remove all the obstacles, and to finally to achieve state of full enlightenment. So there is no swifter path than the Tara practice.
And Jesus Drumala, so what the Muduki Shana, and Kasayaga, and then Yagarwa, and the Russia, the Passia, Puma George, Passion, Gini, the consumption darkness in the Chile. The time of Machochi, Chuman's Tuzon, the Konokakas, and the other two Rosho Tanchi, and the rest. The not to Sarah like Rosho Tan. And if we go to Luker, Rosho Tan, the Dawachis Majon, the Ponderess more Puja, and the Puja Rochigres.
So there was this incident during Tara prayer helped to accomplish the temporary purposes. Like recently there was this a Russian family who was trying to have a child, and they had difficulty conceiving a child. After trying for several years, they couldn't do it, so they came to talk with us, and I just recommended to do a Tara prayer, Tara Puja, and then they offered sponsored a Tara Puja at Sera Monastery, and also they did Tara Puja other places a few times, and then recently they came and they said now she's expecting, so in a few months maybe she's going to have a baby soon.
And also work on the Diana's two boys. Yeah, because Puniga Kachi, but how much a drone shot on Tenzi, and Nipa Maji, a drone shot on the Kaji the Rizro. Kaji Tamas we told you to be really today, you're
so these two sons of Mahayana, they are also born, by praying to Tara, and couldn't give birth, and so they prayed, and then the first boy was born, and then they again prayed to Tara, and the second boy was born. So those are the temporary wishes that was fulfilled. So that's why Lama Zopa Rinpoche assigned, by seeing many different useful reasons, he assigned the day, the 8th of the lunar calendar, to do Tara Puja. So we always do Tara Puja here on the 8th of the lunar calendar, and if you can come to do that, that will be also very beneficial.
So
when you do the practice, if you do it in a group of many people, then that practice becomes much more powerful. And in terms of the place, where we do the practice, it's very blessed place, blessed by all the presence, by the presence of all these holy beings, including His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and many other lamas, great lamas of Tibetan tradition.
근데 그 소리도 다 하는 방법이래. 같이 내가 소소이지. 그래도 냠도 제와이나 소소 쉬고 제와래. 야제 동제 휴체예요.
And then also we have all these holy objects here, and the translated teachings of the Buddha, and then also there's these translated commentaries of the 17 Panditas, the scholars, the great Buddhist scholars, and also then we have all these holy images, statues, and so forth. So if you do in a group here in this holy place, it becomes like hundreds or thousand times more stronger than doing it by yourself.
쇼진당도 가는 대체로 따고 가는거나 가시야 즉 수수고 나올지는 되게 두에서로 상당도 오늘 지나때 뒤에는 대표는 야보시라요 그래서
So of course, sometimes the time doesn't allow, right? You're too busy, or you're involved in something else when it's happening. You can't come. So then that is the exception. Otherwise, some people they think, oh, I don't have to go to the center. I can just do it on my own at my room. So if you have a time, then it's much better to come here and do it together with many people.
아니, 딱 너무 고마워서 나 손질해야 차마 찍어 계좌받아 차마 마무리도 계좌받니 또 휴지로 간디 그 휴지로 오면다 가서지 마 사주 유매 꽤 대상해서 소소 주보고 개와도 그렇게 되더라고요.
And so they give example of sweeping. So it's the broom. When you sweep with the broom, there's stalks, right? Many stalks, together you make it like a bunch, and then you sweep with that, or you just sweep with one stalk. And so which one will sweep more? And so just like that, by doing practice together in a group with many people together, and then that will purify more negativities and accumulate more merit.
어디에 나다 시당 다들 시당 못 하는 거예요. 예수도 간에로 오지나 단단한 들어야 돼. 간에지. 내가 다 누게 되가라. 또 뭐 믿는 야고 만나 되게 처음 누게 되고 상담을 줘야 봐.
And so anyway, so if you think of doing some practice, then those are the practices that I just mentioned. You can do, and even if you can't do so many others, and if you can just do that much, then that will be good enough.
Okay. 다들 가서 시당을 들어가는 그래서 다 되는 거는 뭐냐 사거든 것도 있어요.
So that's just the general practice of Buddhism, and now we're going to go to a little more complicated part.
딱 가는 것도 좀 홍보하지 때 와서 다 되는 홍보도 담보라고 그러세요.
Oh, so last time there was a homework, right? What was the homework?
I wasn't here last time.
내가 대만은 돈하게 되니 대란 얘들이 돈으로 쓰고 얘들이 대만은 얘들이 돈에 돼. 얘와 마셔서 넣었어. 대만은 돈에 되니.
Page 39.
대만은
You see what I can do it on you.
It's okay. Fun? You want fun?
Was it to explain the divisions? Was it to explain the divisions?
Yeah, division. Where is it before?
Yes. So.
I know the division.
지나서 내 마음에 돈하고 있으니.
Okay,
걔는 내 얘들이 돈하고 쓰고 얘들이 돈하고 쓰니.
question was like,
So in page 38, right, we have the definition of the path of seeing. It says a clear realization of the truth is the definition of the path of seeing. If that is divided, there are three: hero's path of seeing, and so forth. The definition of the hero's path of seeing is clear realization of hero's truth. The division and so forth have already been explained.
오케이. 방금도 대만에도 돈하고 들리잖아. 대만에도 써야 돼. 간제 봐. 다들 lumday나 간제 대만 맞춰봐. 돈에서 또 발라. 돈에서 또 이게 남들은 돈하고 그래서 토마토가 나. 강사한테 돈에서 토마토가 나서
So the clear realization of the truth, or the realization of truth, right? Clear realization of truth means like knowing the truth, right? Understanding, knowing the truth. So clear realization here is like realizing directly. like not just realizing, but realizing it directly. And so the truth is what? What is the truth? The lack of true existence is the truth, right? So that's the truth, and realizing that, the realization of that happens, direct realization of that happens only when you have achieved this path of seeing. Right? So that's why the definition of the path of seeing is the clear realization of truth. And so the moment you achieve path of seeing or realize emptiness directly, you become a sangha jewel, right? One of the three objects of refuge. And that realization, the direct realization of wisdom or the emptiness within the continuum of that person, is the Dharma jewel. And so that's when you achieve the true and the Dharma jewel and the Sangha jewel.
Yeah.
And so there are three divisions of the path of seeing, right? The healer's path of seeing, Sojivasa's path of seeing, and the Mahayana path of seeing. And so it's the definition of the healer's path of seeing is the clear realization of healer's truth. Right? And the division and so forth have been already explained. And so what are the divisions that were explained?
Okay. You got it? Someone volunteering?
Anybody know?
So the subset of hearers, solitary realizers, and Mahayana.
Yes. So now here it's talking about, we already talked about the path of seeing, right? And then the path of seeing itself is divided into three: the hearer's path of seeing, Sojivasa's path of seeing, and Mahayana path of seeing. And so now, out of these three, we're talking about the hearer's path of seeing. So hearer's definition of the hearer's path of seeing is the clear realization of hearer's truth. And so, and then division, it says the division of that has been already explained. So what is the division of that that was already explained? Did you find that out?
I found it the divisions in general, but I don't specifically the hearer's path of seeing. Is that what Geshe was asking?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Oh, right.
The hearer's path of seeing, the divisions. There's three: uninterrupted path, the path of release, and then the path that is neither of these two.
Yes.
Are you everybody?
Yeah.
Everybody agree with this?
But is that the same thing as exalted wisdom of meditative equipoise, and then exalted wisdom of subsequent attainment, and then the path that is neither? Is that
And so that was
So
the
moist-
different
moist
terms, but the
In
same
what
thing?
page do you see?
남자의 제대로 시 되니까요.
that answer.
Yeah.
디스.
I don't know exactly what.
That's
남자의
okay.
제대로 보시면 남들어.
Here too, in the,
What do you say?
say?
In the commentary.
뭐라 따봐.
안녕하세요. 제도 아직 된 거.
어때요? Yeah,
So
so
I got confused was on page 37, it talks about the divisions, and that's what my answer was going to be. And then Geshe-la specified it to the hearer's path of seeing particularly.
So what is on the 37 page 37?
That's where it talks about the divisions.
Oh, which one?
It says the 5 paths has 3 divisions of periods, which is like the meditative equipoise, subsequent attainment, and then the neither. And then it talks about in terms of grounds as the hearer's solitary realization.
Yeah, so on the path of seeing, let's say the path of seeing of the hearers. Here first there are 3 different parts, right? There's the meditative equipoise, the subsequent attainment, and then the neither of those two. And then what you said about the uninterrupted path, the path of release, and the neither of those two falls under the meditative equipoise.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So
So what Deborah said is right.
지나가 나야 돼. 아니 여자시나? 니들도 여자시나? 아니 반지는 나와서 되니까 여자 섬세하시 있을 것 같아.
So your division will be the division of the meditative equipoise.
I see.
Okay, everybody confused? Hey, Harold, where are you going? Hello.
Yeah, a little bit confused. Sorry.
Yeah.
Trying.
가야 말이야. 저도 가야 말이야. 저도 같이 메스 와.
I'm on page 37, So I found the reference we're talking about. You know, your meditative equipoise, subsequent attainment, and the path that is neither of those two.
Yep.
I'm just reading it.
Yeah, I have it, but I have a different translation of it. I have it, the three divisions: contemplative exalted wisdom, post-meditational exalted wisdom, and contemplative exalted wisdom that is neither of these. So I think they use a contemplative exalted wisdom as being meditative equipoise. That's what you just called it. And the other one's meditational exalted wisdom.
Subsequent attainment.
Subsequent attainment, right?
Yeah.
And neither of those two.
Yeah. Same.
So, but that's the first division, and then the second division of the meditative equipoise is the uninterrupted path and the liberated path. And
Totally
the two.
liberated path.
I'm sorry?
Totally liberated path. Thoroughly
liberated path.
liberated path. Number two.
And then neither of those
Neither of those two. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, my mind must be just exceptionally small. Could you give me like just an example of like the meditative equipoise, subsequent attainment, and the neither of those two within this context? Because then that'll help me like kind of maybe grab it better.
This will be better territory. 냠샤에서 제대로 되는 거는 뭔가.
단 냠샤에서나 아니 단다 니들이 통화 또 통화 그래도 통화 토마토를 내려주고 있어. 마치 그한테 내려주고 있어. 근데 제다이시나 냠샤에서 대래 수일하네. 아니 아주 다 냠샤에서 수일하게 강사도 지지다 돈도 별로 이제 친구도 별로 제다이시. 아니 냠샤에서 많이 제다이시 많이 들을 아니 냐자바 되게 제지 아니 냐자바 되지 아니 상처를 쌤 아니 이제 집어서 아니 제가 쉬어 많이 하셔 말했어.
So meditative equipoise, is let's say the first time when you achieve this part of seeing, and you achieve it with the meditation on emptiness, right? So your mind is completely focused or contemplating on emptiness, so that's why it's called uninterrupted path. So that's the uninterrupted path, uninterrupted and a path. So that's your uninterruptedly meditating on emptiness. So during that time, you're in a session, meditative equipoise, right? And then, and so in the meditative equipoise, right? And so that is when you're meditating on emptiness, right? And then after you have abandoned what you are supposed to abandon with that meditation, then you come out of that meditation. So then you are out of that meditation, and now you are engaging in other practice in order to accumulate more merit to be able to go back and meditate on emptiness, so that you can abandon what you are about to abandon next. So anyway, so during that, after you come out of meditation, and then when you are in that period where you are doing other practices, not meditating on emptiness, but doing other practices like making prostration, practicing generosity and so forth, you're doing those practices in order to accumulate more merit. So that's the subsequent attainment.
Okay.
And then, so during the subsequent attainment, you don't meditate on emptiness. When you're meditating on emptiness, that is meditative equipoise. So when you're not meditating on emptiness and doing other practice, and that's the subsequent attainment.
Okay.
So let's say, but there are other paths. So during the meditative equipoise, you're meditating on emptiness, but you do have bodhicitta in your mind, right? You have bodhicitta. You're meditating on emptiness, but you have bodhicitta in your mind. So that bodhicitta is a part of seeing also. So the wisdom realizing emptiness is part of seeing. That bodhicitta within that person's continuum is also part of seeing. That's the part of seeing, but that's neither meditative equipoise nor subsequent attainment. So bodhicitta during the meditative equipoise, or within the continuum of the person who is
it's latent. It's not being focused on.
Latent, yeah, or sleeping, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So those are three. Sorry.
Hearers. Is the hearers path we're talking about?
Hearers.
Hearers.
Hearers. Nyanto.
But they have bodhicitta.
니들은 말. 니들은 어도 설설설. 니들은 이 지랑 말. 근데 대지체 니다 유심바. 그러니까 대목이 수정도. 아니 지금이 냠내도 샤슈 설명.
So we were talking, we went into bodhicitta, but
The hearers wouldn't have bodhicitta.
So if we talk about the hearers, then then there are other practices.
Right.
So
You just use that as an example.
yes, example.
All right, thank you.
So there you have other practices, other practice of like observing morality, of abandoned attendant virtues action. So those are not meditative equipoise. And you also have compassion as a hearers. You can still have compassion.
Okay, slowly.
여자 받는 나도 니코 나제래. 아직 니 그든 거가 니가 니 대상간 저건 심하도 뭐 관여해 봤어. 얘기해 봤어.
And so during the meditative equipoise, it's like you are sleeping. When you are sleeping, only the sleep mind is manifesting. Others are all sleeping. All other things are just at the back of your mind. So what is manifesting at that time is just the sleep mind.
강사 강의잖아. 여러 들에다 들니 그게 강사도 잘라야 니 시바 많이 갔다 계속 먹고 여러 봤어. 여러 봤어.
So the person who is sleeping, of course he has many other minds, right? Other minds, the virtuous minds, in his mind, but it's not manifesting at that time. You're not thinking about those virtuous minds.
Okay. 그래서 니 그등이 니 시바들한 여자 시에서 니 등을 거다들한 다니 그거 거다들까지 여자 봐서 그래서.
So it's similar to that, just in regular or normal example, like a person who is sleeping is like the meditative equipoise.
어 대지지 니 그 시바 마에 그다 계속 두서라 아니 여자이도 지도지 고런 마에 그다 시바 대지.
And then the subsequent attainment would be like when you're awake and then you're doing other things, engaging in your daily activities, and then your virtuous mind during the sleep, is like. And so during the other virtuous mind during the sleep, and which is there, but it's not sleep. It's not sleep mind. It's not the awakened mind.
Okay.
So, but it's there. So that's like the nature of those two.
Okay, thank you.
다니요 야는 정말 친절해도 나 제다 시작을 했어. 강사들은 제다 봐서 이제 시발은 제다 시스.
So when you are awake, when you're awake and you do other things like you wash, eat and so forth, and so when you do that, that's like the subsequent attainment, or we call it like post-meditative equipoise.
나도 야문에도 나도 저는 이 시발 열어서 나도 다나 야문 나도 저는 이 시발 열어서.
When we are awake, do we have the sleep consciousness?
No.
When we are awake.
It's not being expressed. We have it, but it's not being expressed. It's latent.
It is there, but it's not manifest.
It's latent.
Latent. So right now we are all relaxed, right? Do we have anger in our mind at this time? No?
No, the inference, but not, it's not.
No, it's latent. It's there.
It's latent. It's there, right?
It's not manifesting at all.
Yeah, it's not manifesting, but it's there, right?
Unfortunately.
So the moment it meets with the condition, it will come up. It will manifest right away. So there's there's so many different kind of mind, the good mind, bad mind, neutral minds, and so forth. So all these minds, they are there, but they arise only when they meet with the condition. None of them all come up at the same time. So whichever condition rises, that's when that mind is going to manifest also.
I'm not clear about the difference between the exalted wisdom of subsequent attainment and the path of seeing, which is neither meditative equipoise or subsequent attainment.
So let's do with the hearers now, right? So there's the practice of giving within the continuum of the hearer, who is in uninterrupted part of meditation. Is it uninterrupted part of the path of seeing? Anyway, it's not meditative equipoise of the hearers, right? So it's not meditative equipoise, right? Is it subsequent attainment? That practice of giving within the continuum of the hearer on the uninterrupted part of the path of seeing, uninterrupted part of the hearer's path of seeing. So if it is subsequent attainment, then it has to manifest. But that practice of giving is not manifesting, right?
So it's neither.
Yeah, because what is manifesting is the meditation on emptiness or selflessness.
So the trick of neither of the two means it's not manifesting.
Yeah, it should not manifest. It should not manifest. So, so during the post-meditative equipoise or during the subsequent attainment, you have the realization of emptiness, right? Or realization of selflessness, but it's not manifesting. So you can say the realization of selflessness in the continuum of the hearer on the subsequent attainment.
How about not okay?
No.
Not yet.
No.
That judo yapunya. Nyojo is the judo hakolo. Or ranchi with Tamil teaching him Nyojo, Angela, and then you Nyojo thing it was. Or ranchi with Tamil teaching him Nyojo, or Angela, and then you was.
So it has to manifest. So it has to manifest if it is meditative equipoise. So what has to manifest on the meditative equipoise is the object, the meditation on the selflessness. So that the mind realizing selflessness has to manifest, in the meditative equipoise. So that's the definition of the meditative equipoise.
What? 다 강한 여자가 되지 제스 다 준비냐 아무나 틀어서 주는 거예요. 와. 대 안한테가 담을 좀 여자 지금 말고 와서.
So it has its object, the meditative equipoise object has to be the selflessness, wisdom realizing selflessness, right? So that is its object, and so the practice of generosity or practice of morality in the continuum of the hearers, the hearer on the path of seeing is not. Part of seeing in the uninterrupted part of the path of seeing is not a meditative equipoise, right? That practice is not meditative equipoise, right? Mm-hmm. Why? Because if it is meditative equipoise, the object of it has to be emptiness or selflessness, right? Mm-hmm. So since the practice of generosity is not the selflessness, so therefore it cannot be its object, and therefore it cannot be the meditative equipoise. And so because it has different object, therefore those consciousness, which has different object, they are different, right? They are different because of having different objects. And so it is very easy to come to the conclusion that the practice of generosity is not a meditative equipoise, right?
아니 제도적인 생각에 아니 가르나 아니 녀여시 라베 같이 당에 되잖아. 간지 녀여를 야만 거 그래서 녀여시 둘랑서 이거 그래서. 대리한테 녀여를 라이면 그녀여 강하지 시바를 왔어.
So in order to be a subsequent attainment, it has to be out of meditative equipoise, right? You have to be out of, you have to be awakened from the or come out of the meditative equipoise. But that practice of generosity within the continuum of the uninterrupted part, a hearer, and the uninterrupted part, the part of seeing, is still in meditative equipoise. Hasn't come out of that, right? And therefore, it is not subsequent attainment. Subsequent attainment has to come out of it. so that practice of generosity, if it is in the post-meditative equipoise or the subsequent attainment, then it has to manifest also, right? It has to manifest, but it is not manifesting. What is manifesting during that time is the wisdom realizing selflessness.
Okay? But the Shipa Kala, Shipa Susu, the part Chichishra, Susu get the Yet Shimba Yet away.
So there are many different kind of the consciousnesses, the mind or consciousness, and they all have a different object. So they cannot. This object, focus on this object, cannot focus on another object. So, like example, the eye sense consciousness has its one object, right? It has to be a visual object, right? The olfactory or the sound cannot be its object, right? Sounds can I see the sound? Cannot, right? So only ear can hear the sound. I cannot see the sound. So the object of the eye has to be a visual, object, physical object. So the nose consciousness, which has the ability to smell, right? Can the nose consciousness see the object? So it has different objects, right? They each have their own individual objects. And what about the eye? Can it feel the contact? Can it come in contact with the object and feel it, whether it's rough or smooth? And so each consciousness has their own individual objects. And so if it is a meditative equipoise, the object of the meditative equipoise has to be selflessness or emptiness, right? And so the practice of generosity within the continuum of the hearer on the uninterrupted path, the path of seeing, cannot be meditative equipoise because it's not emptiness or selflessness, right?
Something this little killing. For example, little bit debate, okay. And talk about your
Can you see a white horse?
I'm a little bit confused, okay?
White horse?
Yeah. White horse, the horse that you ride. Yeah. Can you see the white horse with your eye? Yeah. You can?
No.
Not this minute.
No, usually.
Can you see it or not?
Just usually.
In general?
Yeah.
You can see a white horse, right?
Everybody's
agree?
Agree that? Okay.
So white is a color, right?
Color is the mixing was.
So if it is a color, it has to be object of the eye consciousness, right? Color can be only seen, right? You cannot smell the color, right? And so therefore it has to be a form, right? So white horse, is it an object? I mean, is it a form? Is it a matter? White horse.
No, the white horse is a functioning thing because it's a functioning thing.
It's okay.
No, it is a functioning thing, but when you say the form, right? I mean, when we say form, that you can see with your eye, right? So white horse you can see with your eye. So if it is something that you can see with your eye, it has to be a matter. That's in a matter, right? It has to be a form, it has to be a matter. So then in that case, you are saying that white horse is a matter, right? Yeah. Is the white horse matter?
Is it all matter?
Is it a matter?
Yeah.
Matter like M-A-T-T-E-R?
Oh, yes. Physical.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, physical. Yeah. Physical. Is it a physical matter? So then you're saying it is a matter, right? Like just like the wood, and the stone, and so on, right? You're saying that.
We see
So
a
isn't a white horse a being?
white horse is
A being.
It's a conceptualization that we label upon the function.
No.
of things.
That's different.
But then we still see it.
Yeah, so you said the white horse is a matter, right? If you see it, it has to be a matter. And so because you can see the white horse, therefore the white horse has to be matter. But isn't white horse a being?
A living being.
Sentient being?
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Within
how
the
can sentient being be a matter?
Because of the form.
Because they take a form.
See, so that's the trick part is that how can sentient being be a matter? You're not matter, I'm not matter, right?
Does it
This
matter?
matter.
Whether you have matter?
No, but we're in the
The
continuum.
body is
But I don't
Human being is a matter?
The body is. Yes.
No, not body, not human body, human being.
We haven't reached a contradiction yet, I don't think. Because within the continuum of...
Human being is matter or not?
No, but within the continuum of...
No,
we,
just
we
human
see
being.
the horse.
What is a human being then?
Within
Is
the
it a matter?
The body is a form. The human being's mind and then body. So the body is a form. You can't see the mind.
No, the question is human being a matter?
Matter.
Yes or no?
What's the definition of matter?
Yes or no?
I don't know. What does it matter?
I'm not going there.
This is what's that? Tibetan philosophy.
Yes,
So,
great.
the question is whether human being is a matter or not, and you say yes or no. You don't have to ask any questions for
I don't
that.
know what matter is though. What do we?
If someone asks you what happened to your head, and then you say I have a pain in my butt. So I'm asking what happened to your head, and you say that you have a pain in your butt.
Yeah. And
So you see the question. The question is what happened to your head,
uh-huh.
and you say I have a pain in my butt.
So you're answering something.
See, that's your answer. My question is what happened to your head, and you said I have pain in my butt.
Is human being matter? And they have,
Understand?
then the answer is no. The answer is no.
Okay, anyway, this is just tricky.
It's fine.
In monastery, there are a lot of debates there. A lot of debates. Sometimes.
Over this?
Yeah. Yeah, this we
This
don't.
is training, yeah, this is good.
Yeah. 좋아. 근데 정수
This
속에
is good, sharp.
정수 좀 말아, 나도 좀 말아, 나도 좀 말아, 나도 미안 미워.
So we are not matter, right? We are human beings.
What we
Yeah,
have,
but
we are
have
human
matter.
beings. We have matter, but we are not matter. Are we matter?
The way that
made of matter.
Are we matter? Human
We are
beings are
made.
not matter.
Between having and being.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's what.
I am a human being. I'm not matter, right?
Well, then also I heard that thing. The horse is not white, just the color.
Yeah, therefore I said,
Yeah.
good trick. 근데 저는 얘네 저 이거 말아봤어. 저는 얘네 저 이거 말아.
So what you can see is the white color of the horse, right? Not the horse itself. Right? That's what it is.
It's not a white horse. It's just the color.
Color of the horse.
Yeah.
Color of the white horse.
Anyway, this is just tricky, okay? There are a lot of.
딱하고 통하여 말해. 딱하고 가도 통하여. 왜?
나 들리러 가지. 딱하고 가도 가보지. 딱하고 매서. 대체 딱하고 가도 가보지. 딱하고 매서. 딱하고 매라 그랬어. 딱하고 가도 가보겠어. 나 딱해야 영화 지금 땅으로 100개 전에도 딱 까보라면서 일하는 자식 제대로.
그래서
딱 까보라면서.
나가.
딱 가려다 가지.
가보래.
딱 가도 가보여 그랬어. 딱 가보여 말했어. 이러면서.
딱하고 가도였어.
딱 가도 그랬어. 딱 가보 매서.
So you will have to say that there's no white horse. There's no white horse. There's a white color horse, but there's no white horse. There is a white color. So what you can see is the white color of the horse, right? But not the horse itself. So you cannot see white horse. You can only see a white color of the horse.
And is the logic of that saying because horse is a concept?
None. Horse is a human being, a sentient being. It's not a matter. If you can see it, it has to be matter.
What concept? You can see a horse.
Huh?
You see the body of the horse.
Yeah, body of the bird. Yeah.
That's right, body of the bird.
But they share a common locus, like matter, being, and sentient being, but they're not
완전히
mutually
나도
exclusive.
나도 부모 말아. 나도 미 부모 말아. 부모 열어.
We have a body, right? We're not body.
Yeah, right. I understand.
Yeah, we have body.
I
We're not
understand.
body,
I
right?
understand.
So what you see is the body, not
Right.
not the person.
Right.
Yeah,
You see person's body, not person, right?
yeah, that's good.
So then I'll just-
That's right.
So is that
There's
just
a
all
person,
connected?
there's a label.
Person is a level, right?
So
That's
that's all,
right.
it all comes back to that, right?
And
Yes.
listen, okay, now we just stop the
Thank you.
David,
That's
yeah.
fun. That's fun.
But first Tibetan called Dura. Dura said the kanji, 꽃이야, 님들이라고 그래서 Dura.
So usually we call it, in English we call it collected topics. So it's all about collected topics. So it's talking about all these different things, like the phenomena, the matters, the consciousnesses, and those that are neither of those two, and so forth, and unassociated compositional factors, and so forth. So these are all to it's like they call it is a key to open your brain. So your mind, so that makes it clear for you to understand what things are, what things are not, and so forth.
Okay? It's okay. Yeah. 당도 이어왔으면 자식도 봐. 이미 도녀조시 제도시 되니 거는 말씀스. 이거 하셔서 되겠어.
And so the division that has already been explained, are those three, right? The meditative equipoise, the subsequent attainment, and the neither of those two.
Okay? 다음 일이도 받침으로 되시는가 보통 뭐? 이들은 받침으로 하고 안에 다 받침으로 되다 되셔. 다들 이제 동안 치세를 되게. 단도는 동안 치세 근주 치세까지 덴바 셔라 미백이 다 같이 일이 동안 만들어 시요 그래서 때라 되거든요. 아니 일이 동안 받침으로 강시 그런 거지 빠져지면 내외 되지.
어디 가내렸다?
아,
어디 가내려요?
다들 받침으로 해요. 받침으로. 이거 받침으로 해요. 얘들이 또 받침으로 이거라.
아침에는 스니까 저.
받침으로 되니까 강해요. 랑지 때문에 되지 말이야. 랑은 또 이제 내가 끄덕이는 이제 봐서 공사가 다 끄덕이는 이제 받았다. 공사가 다 끄덕이는 이제 봐서. 그리고
So you find the definition. Anyway, so now then, so there's now the meditative equipoise and the subsequent attainment, and neither of those two, right? So the first one, meditative equipoise itself, is divided into three again, right? So those are uninterrupted path, the path of release or thoroughly liberated path, and the neither of those two. The meditative equipoise is the path of sin. There is neither of those two. And so now the first one, uninterrupted path. The uninterrupted path itself has all these divisions here. So, so that's the.
그리고 랑지 때문에 되지 말이야. 강하지 랑 거지 빠져지비 얘들 끄덕 있는 이제 봐. 니들 동안 받침으로 되니지. 얘들 끄덕. 강하다 당겨서 되는 거 그죠? 나 랑지 때문에 되지 강하지.
So do you find that the definition of the path, uninterrupted path, is the path of seeing? Where you found that earlier, the division of the three, the meditative equipoise and so forth. So did you see the definition of the uninterrupted path? So there's the uninterrupted path is the path that is focusing on its object, the selflessness, right? And which serves as an antidote to intellectual delusions.
그래서 다 이게 또 받침만 봐 세자지. 다라는 거지 관자 대외 내외 되지. 동안 동반이 있어 봐. 이게 동안 치세가 되지.
So it says here the definition of an uninterrupted path of the hero's path of seeing is a clear realization of the truth of the hero, which is a meditative equipoise, one really on the selflessness of a person, and which serves as an intellectual or actual antidote to the acquired or intellectual afflictive obstructions, which are the object of abandonment, which correspond to it. And And so then, when it's divided, there are 8 forbearances of a hero's path of seeing. And so now here it talks about the forbearances, the 8 forbearances. So the 8 forbearances. The first one is the suffering. It says the forbearance, the definition of the doctrinal forbearances of suffering related to the hero's path of seeing. And then second one is the
18, page 18.
so that which is an uninterrupted part of the hero's path of seeing, and which act as an actual antidote to the seeing abandonments related to sufferings included in the part of the desire realm, which are its corresponding objects of abandonment. So that's the first one, right? Related to the suffering, and then there's the next one is the related to the origin of sufferings. Geshe-la, Geshe-la.
Geshe said the Pachimanachi, Geshe said the Mama Geshe said the Pachimana, Geshe said the Nondala. Geshe said the Pachimana, Geshe said the Nondala. Geshe said what? Geshe said the Pachimana, and Geshe said the Nondala. Geshe said the Pachimana, Geshe said the Nondala. Ramboji, Pajaji, and David in Tongo, Initiative, and you did not know the
number of course you are.
I don't know.
So
Shibaji, Zobaji, Shibaji, Pachimano, Zobaji,
Red.
Chooses
the Tabu Shabagitra. Sobagit, Abosabagi Shigola. Sobagedi, Kadira. Number of Sobagedi.
choose it, that's all. Choose it, Pachima. Tamura no Pachima. Pachima. Sabaji said Pachima. Shibaji said no.
Number.
They just said Kaji Komarash Koma Devado, Zuzumia Komachi, and Devaro. And they said and demanded Gopalan Devajation. She was.
So the 8 divisions of the uninterrupted path. So there are the doctrinal forbearances and subsequent forbearances, right? So doctrinal forbearances, with the suffering, and the subsequent forbearance of suffering. And it's truth, right? The suffering, the origin, the origin, the path, and the cessation. So all these 4, so each of these 4. Have the doctrinal forbearances and subsequent forbearances, so that's how it makes 8. So
for those 2.
Yeah, 4. So the suffering of the doctrinal forbearance, then the origin of the doctrinal forbearance, and then there's the path of the doctrinal forbearance, and then same with the cessation of the doctrinal forbearance. And then these 4 you repeat with also the subsequent forbearances. And so that's how it makes 8 an uninterrupted path.
There's origin, path, and cessation.
Yeah, suffering, origin.
I got it. Thank
suffering,
you.
origin, path, and cessation.
Thank you. Okay, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
it's very complicated. Yeah. That they generally didn't ask it. What they gave a community, Duma, Tombon, Jetting, Chapati, Yidin, Toma, Jetting, that community.
So that one is the definition of the doctrinal forbearance of suffering, and then there's the the subsequent forbearance of suffering related to the hero's path of seeing, right? And so that which is the uninterrupted part of the hero's path of seeing, which act as the actual antidote to the afflictive obstruction that are the seeing abandonments related to sufferings included in the path of higher realms, which are its corresponding objects of abandonment. And again, so there's a difference, of these the sufferings included in the paths. So here is the sufferings included in the paths of desire realm, and for the doctrinal forbearance, is the desire in the desire realm, right? The suffering included in the paths of the desire realm, and for the subsequent forbearances, it is the suffering included in the path of the higher realms, the desire realm and the higher realms, which are its corresponding object of abandonment.
Okay, that is generally us.
So the desire realm, that includes like the hell, animals, and human beings, And then so there's the demigods and also some gods, and there's a desire realm god. And then the higher realm refers to the form realms and the formless realms. And then it says the reasoning can be applied to the others. And so it means like you can follow in the same way to the others. So here it's talking about the suffering, right? And then you apply that in the same thing to the origin. Like here it says, that which is an antidote part of the hearer's part of seeing, and which acts as the actual antidote to the seeing abandonment related to suffering, right? Related to suffering included in the part of so this is talking about the suffering. And now when you apply this to the origin, it says abandonments related to origin included in the part of the desire. And when it says the part, and it says the part included in the parts of the desire, and then the cessation included in the parts of the desire. Like that. So that's how you apply same reasonings.
More complex, okay? And
so these 8 forbearance and and so these forbearances, 8 forbearances can be generated at the same time. It says there is simultaneous production of 8 forbearances of the hearer's part of seeing, because they are produced in that way in the continuum of a candidate for stream enterer who abandons object of abandonment all at once. So in that kind of being's mind, these 8 forbearances can be generated at the same time, simultaneously. So those sharp faculties, the hearers and the hearers part of seeing, the sharp faculty practitioner on the hearer's part of seeing can abandon them all at the same time and achieve all these 8 forbearances of the antidote part at the same time. And then it says there is a gradual production also, right? So there's gradual production one after another, right? One at a time. And there is a gradual production because they are produced in that way in the continuum of she who abandons the object of abandonment in stages. So one at a time. So this is quite clear. This is all at once, abandonments, all at once means like everything together. And then it says the gradual one is an object of abandonment in stages. It means first you abandon this and then you abandon that, and so you go in stages. So like a big truck can carry all these things at the same time, whereas the small car might have to like carry one at a time, many times to take it to the destination. So similar to that. And you see that here is the candidate for the stream enterer.
And then
so enterer, there's a stream enterer and stream abiders. So there's enterers and abiders. And so there's so 4 enterers and 4 results, 4 results or 4 effects. Have you heard of it?
Yeah,
have you heard of 20 sanghas? 20 sanghas? 20 sangha?
20 sangha?
Yes. Topic of 20 sanghas? So those are the 4 results, or effects like the stream enterers, once returner, never returner, and then the arhat. four results. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
내가
부족한 것 같다니 이 통화 값이 이 통화 고문이 값이
So those are all, those are the four results, of the Arya path. And so it's all talking at the path of seeing and path of meditation.
Okay? You don't want to go
And
there.
then path of normal learning, right? So the arhats, the path of normal learning.
다 대랑 산지라는 자스 다 니도 치바레스 세니아 지와 예와는 치바 거기랑 산지 때문에 치바레스
And then says that reasoning can be applied to sorted realizers. So you understand that part now? You can apply that to the sorted realizers.
가지 다 쪼도 가마지 가지 통화사에 가래 강사된 토마토바도 강사 가르쳐는 거예요. 당연히 맞어.
So what is the path of seeing? What happens when the person achieves the path of seeing for the very first time? What happens to the person?
Direct perception of emptiness.
Four Noble Truths.
Only most the words.
Huh?
What did you say? They have a direct realization of the Four Noble Truths.
They become an Arya Bodhisattva? Or not a hero, not in...
The 16
The most
aspects of the Four Noble Truths.
모노스는 the most the words.
강사들 가르쳐는 거예요. 다 도용이지 빨리 딱 먼저 도와면 가시로 강사들 가르쳐는 거예요.
What did you say? Becomes what?
An Arya being...
Pavacharas.
봐봐지. 아니 꼴조선은 가르래. 나도 그때나 꼴조선 드려주려고 가르쳐.
Among three jewels, what do you become?
Sangha.
Sangha.
Sangha jewel, right?
딩가는 선다지 쳐 여러 가지.
Can you become Sangha jewel before that? Before realizing emptiness directly? Before achieving the path of seeing?
No.
Ordinary Sangha, but not actual Sangha.
어땠더라? 아니 먼저 가서 개인이 시대에 지났다 개인이 깨지고 늦지 않고 늦지 무슨 개인이 깨지라고 말해.
So the four, a member of four fully ordained monk or fully ordained nun can be labeled as a Sangha, but not actual Sangha. Then they are not actual Sangha.
그리고 어떤 데서 아니 미치게 들어가 되나 정도 상제 깨져 치고 개인이 트이줄 나가게 왔어. 아니 개인이 깨져도 다 사진을 가원 강가 잡아 들어가 있나? 주들 납도 들어가서.
So when you take refuge in the Sangha jewel, if someone were to ask you, when do you become Sangha jewel? Can you say when?
이거가
Okay.
When do you become? When do you become Sangha jewel?
On direct perception of emptiness.
Almost always.
그렇고 오케이. 다 강사들이 돈을 또서 개인이 전화 받지. 돈을 쓰러도 가래. 공조선은 가래.
So the person becomes Sangha jewel when he or she realizes emptiness directly, right? So the direct realization of emptiness is what? What is the direct realization of emptiness? The direct realization of emptiness is what?
the path of seeing.
Is what?
The path of
Among the
seeing.
three jewels?
Oh, the Dharma.
Dharma jewel.
오케이. 오케이. 대학 고고 다 강사다 상지선은 다 상지 공조에 전화 왔어.
And then through practice of meditation on the emptiness, right? On the direct realization of emptiness, when the person eventually becomes Buddha or fully enlightened being, when he or she achieves full enlightenment, then it becomes Buddha jewel.
오케이.
So then three jewels are.
고소. 아니 시에땅으로 지나 상태에 대해 주다가 뭐지? 걔들 걔들도 중요해 되지. 말해. 주거도 중요해 되지. 걔들 걔들도 주도 나라고 해서 그러니까 좀
So the Buddha jewel, is the founder of the refuge, or the one who explains the teachings, right? And then the Dharma jewel is the actual refuge. That actually protects you from all the suffering. And the Sangha jewel, is the one who assists, help you to achieve these realizations of freedom from sufferings.
그러나 당 가서 콘조도 짭짭짭 때문에 문에도 서는다 죽어요. 때문에 문에도
And so the actual refuge, is the Dharma jewel, right?
고소 가지 나와가지고 가지 쪽으로.
How is the Dharma jewel actual refuge? How is it?
Because Buddha and Sangha can't enlighten you, but by applying the Dharma, then you can become Buddha. You can't apply Buddha and Sangha to yourself, because you become Buddha and Sangha to the Dharma.
어떻게 가지? 된지 걔네 걔 되겠지. 아니 돈이 또 별로 다음에 또 별로 이제 제목 아니 장주고 쌤 가래 당시 개선도 좀 강가 아니 다 지켜줘 그래서
So all these realizations, all the excellent qualities, within the continuum of the sangha, the actual sangha jewel, is the Dharma jewel.
그래서 오케이. 근데 강가대 라마 컨디션.
So when do the person actually enter into a path? When?
Renunciation.
Yeah.
Renunciation.
Okay. When we got fourth renunciation, then they
Enter into a path.
enter a path. Okay. 그래서 단지 저들한테 이해가도 못한 거 맞잖아요. 세상지 럽도 나오지. 도도로 하고 있는 중이 말이야.
So even if you don't know or cannot memorize all the details of the divisions and definitions and so forth, but at least if you know in general, when do you enter the path, when do you become a sangha jewel and so forth, then that's good enough.
아니 renunciation 간 고갈 단계로 와서 고갈 단계로.
So what is renunciation? What is renunciation? What kind of mind is called renunciation?
나는 너무 치다하다.
What kind of mind?
내 땡이
So when you have renunciation is when you enter into the path. So it's the kind of mind that you generate, and then you have entered into the path, right? So what kind of mind is renunciation?
Not want to be in samsara.
Huh?
Not the mind which don't want to be in samsara.
I don't want to be in samsara, yeah.
Yeah. Then what is the samsara?
Samsara is
Yeah, we have to know that what the other words is just what's correct. 문화나 나누자 집어서는
So otherwise we are trying to reach something in the dark.
that's right.
That's right. That's right.
the birth and based on karma and illusion. So
Yeah, uncontrolled.
uncontrolled.
Certainly.
Huh?
In control of what?
Coming, turning to the, well, is becoming based on karma and illusion.
Yes.
Learning because of the basis of karma and illusion.
그래서
내가 원하는 데는 차고 같아서.
내가 눈물을 때는 딱 라운드로 걸었어. 라운드로 끼웠어.
So what do we call samsara is like what? Cycling existence, right?
Cycling.
Cycling existence
Mm.
means what? Circling. Yeah. So in circling, going round and round, right?
Based on
So what is the round thing that we're going on? It's the rebirth, and death and rebirth. And then you're born, you die, you're born, you die, you're born. So you're going round and round without any control. All powered by the karma and delusion. And because of the karma and delusion, you die. So that circle is called cycling existence.
대인다 당나도 내가 니모지 영어치 등으로 라운드 먼저 왔어. 라운드 요만했어.
So we are kind of powered by the karma and delusion, right?
Oh, yeah.
So we don't have any freedom.
There's no freedom. It's not a democracy country.
You have renunciation, you can have freedom.
No.
No?
대말에. 그래서 너한테는 라운드 요만했어. 요만해.
Do we have freedom or no now?
Yes, no. No, right. There's no democracy country.
I'm going to say this.
빼나 당도 못 라고 싶어. 그러나 나도 라운드 매라고 왔어. 라운드 매라고 왔어.
So we say we don't have freedom, right?
Politically.
No, within the context of this, I'm going to say yes. Not easy, but yes.
There is a freedom?
We can decide to change.
Or there is no freedom?
I say yes, there is freedom.
There is freedom.
Within this context.
대능나도 내가 니모지 영어치 되게 말해.
But aren't we controlled by the karma and delusion? So we are under the control of the karma and delusion, right?
If renunciation is possible, I didn't say it's easy, but if renunciation is possible, we can choose, over a very long period of time,
Yeah, of course, you can get the independence or freedom later, but right now, when we have not generated renunciation, when we are not free from cyclic existence, we are under the control of this karma
Right, I
and delusion,
understand.
right?
Is it better maybe to say that freedom is latent? We haven't actualized the freedom?
It's not that simple.
오케이.
Sorry.
다 내가 니모지 영어치 좀 주세요.
So let's say how we are controlled by the karma delusion. For example, right? One example of how we are controlled by it. None of us want to age, right?
Yeah.
But we do age, right? Do we have any control over that?
No.
I see. We're controlled by the karma delusion, right?
Okay.
So none of us wishes to experience any of those unwanted sufferings, right? Of getting sick and so forth, but we still do, right? So there are many things that we don't want to do, but we have to do, right? You know, in kind of including in a job, right? We don't want to fall sick. We fall sick. We don't want to be born in the lower realm, we don't want to be born in the hell realm, we don't want to be born as animals. But if we have created karma, then we're going to be born, right? Even if we don't want to, we're still going to be born.
Do you guys want to be born to, very small dog?
No. No, I don't want that.
No? No one want to be born,
So, like they use the, what do you call that, the dogs, for contest.
Oh, yeah, terrible, yeah. Dog fighting?
Not fighting, the
Racing?
Oh, the
Like,
greyhounds?
they're not necessarily fighting or racing, but just a dog show, so whichever dog looks most beautiful.
Beautiful. They really take it good.
You get a prize, right?
Yes.
You don't want to be born as such dog.
No, really? 아직 때문에 관심 맞지.
You ever see dog food? I don't know.
관심 맞지. 나도 선수 게임 말하는 관심 다들 내 경기에도 그래서 내 대해서 당당한 소리 되니 치노고 약간 돈데 대신 가오다 샤바쇼 걔는 되니 약간도 치지. 자바로 걔는 대 제일 쓰기로.
So we don't want to be born that, but if we have created karma to be born as such, then we're going to be born, right? Like that we have created the karma, but we just have to give it some water, for that karma to ripen. And like if we have that thought, thinking, oh, such a cute dog, so nice life, thing like that. If you have like small kind of attachment towards that life of dog, then you ignite that karma, to be born as such a dog.
Less at the
So that delusion, the delusion, the desire attachment.
less at the shiragi things about
And of course, the karma, how it really functions, how it really works, it's very difficult to understand. By ordinary beings, only the enlightened beings can tell you exactly what karma, how, what time, and so forth.
나 안에라데 다 rab도 쉬는 안에 잘 돼. 다 하루처럼 안에 다 저처럼 같이 내려서는.
So, for example, Anila, she took the ordination and she's ordained, but you are not. Why is that?
뭐 누만 내다 사셔 깨는 체험서는 뭐
So she has created the karma to be ordained, and then when she met with the condition, she became ordained.
다 제가 치기는 레서야 되는 제가 컨디션 체험 제가 전에 잡사야 돼.
Maybe you have created karma, but you didn't have the condition because you are married. So like that, that kind of a condition.
내가 레서야 돼. 나도 레가 내다다 가르쳐야 돼. 다 소수의 손을 스페셜.
Yeah, so to be able to know exactly what the karma is, how it functions, and so forth is very difficult to understand. So the details of the karma, so what karma, how, when it was created, and how it was created, and so forth, is only known by the omniscient one.
Okay. 다 나절아 rinja 아서 가서 요서 다 나절아 rinja 차이 다 생심마시 모스.
So anyway, it says here that reasoning can be applied to the subtle levels. So stop here. And it says the definition is Mahayana path of seeing. So now it's talking about the Mahayana path of seeing. That's the clear realization of the truth of the Mahayana. The divisions has been already explained. And so you have to know what are the divisions. And so next time when you come to the class, be known of all these divisions. No? Don't look at the book when you are asked at that time.
I'm just okay.
No, that's okay. Divisions.
It's okay, look, okay? We all try to best. Really, not everything, whatever they say exactly, we are really cheap in that. We are not straight. Okay? And you are doing some specific caution. Yeah.
Geshe, we talked about earlier, when we talked about Bodhisattvas on the Mahayana path, on the meditative equipoise, they don't have, the bodhicitta is latent, but it's not rising. I've heard, some texts they refer to that realization of emptiness as ultimate bodhicitta. So, to me it's kind of the same when we say that bodhicitta, when they said it's latent, to me it doesn't seem latent because they refer to the ultimate, that realization of emptiness itself as ultimate bodhicitta. I was wondering if Geshe-la's heard this term, if they refer to it as that.
So, yeah, that is ultimate bodhicitta, but it's not bodhicitta. It's ultimate bodhicitta is not bodhicitta. So the wisdom realizing emptiness conjoined with the bodhicitta is called ultimate bodhicitta. Yeah. So it's not a bodhicitta. It's the wisdom realizing emptiness conjoined with bodhicitta. It's called ultimate bodhicitta.
So ultimate bodhicitta has bodhicitta, but it's not bodhicitta itself.
It's not bodhicitta itself.
Oh, okay.
It's the ultimate bodhicitta.
Okay.
So ultimate is the wisdom realizing emptiness. So yeah, so it is the wisdom realizing emptiness directly within the continuum of Arya Bodhisattva. So Arya Bodhisattva obviously, Bodhisattvas obviously have bodhicitta, and no need to mention about the Arya Bodhisattva, right? So Arya Bodhisattva who realizes emptiness directly, has bodhicitta already anyway, right? So that direct realization of emptiness within the continuum of Arya Bodhisattva is called the ultimate bodhicitta.
Okay. So it's not the same as the bodhicitta, but it has bodhicitta, the ultimate bodhicitta.
That's right.
Okay, that makes sense. I just have one more question. Geshe-la said that ordinary Sangha is one of the 4 fully ordained monks. Is that
a group of 4?
A group of 4 fully ordained monks. So they're not considered Sangha if they're novice monks?
The Gitulina then is under the Tigo. So it says fully ordained monk, It's in the text it says fully ordained monk. So if you're not fully ordained, I guess it's not.
So technically.
So there's first there's just a monk, called Rabjung. When you just become monk, you don't have the novice vow either, and then you become novice monk, and then you become fully ordained monk. So just because you're a monk, doesn't mean that you're a sangha. Fully 4 group of monks. It says 4 group of fully ordained monk or not.
So that's the divided line technically between the term sangha.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So there's the conventional sangha. So the actual sangha would be someone who has emptiness directly.
Okay.
다 저와 저주에는 또 이해돼. 저주만 들어먹고 지내니까 개인기 좀 드시자고 딱 도와주고 계집적으로
And then, but in the advice, or precept, of having taken refuge in the sangha, is that there are things that you should do and things you should not do. Then the things you should not do is that you should not associate with the non-virtuous friends, and the things you should do is that you should respect. You should think of even an ordinary monk. Of course, no need to mention about the monk. Even his or her robe, you should think of that as an actual sangha. And think of that. So they're not right there, but you have to think of them as the real sangha. So, of course, you have to respect in that way, but that's not necessarily their real sangha.
그러나 되게 남자들 사실 좀 되게 막 나와서 딱 들이 같이 이마까지 딱 저는 지금 있으려고 그래서.
So the reason is because that role of a monk or nun is because of that blessing carried from the Buddha's time to the present, and therefore it is considered as very holy.
Very nice. Okay. Yeah, I know that.
Thank you, Geshe.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
다 사수.